I have a little bit of food for thought for anybody who thinks that there is no prejudice or discrimination against singles slash solo sexuals at the workplace. So a lot of times at work, people think that I don't have people to take care of, right? No spouse, no kids. What they forget is the corollary: there's nobody to take care of me, meaning that there's nobody to cook for me. I was working at a startup company where I was one of the few people who was single. I mean, not all my colleagues were married, but they had a significant other. And oftentimes I would get off work 6, 7, 8 o'clock even sometimes, when all my colleagues would be gone by 4:30. Now, what did I then do? I ended up having to eat out a lot. I mean, granted, I was making good money at the startup company, but I felt like it was an additional tax. I mean, yes, I had healthy options to go to, but it certainly costed more money, and it almost felt like an additional tax just because of the expense of having to do that. I mean, granted, I tried to make the best out of it and connect with people at the places I was eating out at, so it wasn't the end of the world. But to some people, it could feel like an additional tax or a burden. Some people certainly don't know how to eat healthy choices out at the restaurant. And so people forget that the counterpart of not having somebody to take care of is nobody to take care of me and to share some of the household chores like cooking or cleaning and whatever, right? Earlier this week, I had a little bit of a disaster. I got to work and I realized I had a flat tire. Fortunately, the tire shop is just across the street from where I'm working. And so in between classes, I'd work at a tutoring center. I had to race out to bring my car to the shop, to run back to pick up the car, because by the time I get off work, the car repair shop would have been closed. And I remember as a kid, sometimes my dad's car would break down at work. My mom would go pick him up. They would leave their car there overnight. I don't have the option of doing that, right? But people forget about the counterpart. They just think I have nobody to take care of, right? I was working at a different startup company when I had joined, and one of my colleagues had joined a week after me, and this was a month into the job. And one day we had a meeting, and my colleague didn't show. And we were a little bit concerned because he was always at work on time, and he missed the meeting. And then he showed up at 11:30, 12 o'clock, and he starts apologizing about how he slept in because the night before he had broken up with his girlfriend, and he was crying over that overnight, and then he slept in. And so, you gotta understand, this is a startup company. Not showing up to work 3 weeks into your job, that's suicide for your career. And we really thought he had something serious on the magnitude of he got into a car accident on the way to work, or maybe a family member had died. We really thought that. We were all very concerned. And when he came in and said it was a breakup, all was forgotten, right? Nobody wanted him to get reprimanded for that anymore, right? Now, granted, yes, I understand breakups can be tough, but you know what? I don't have difficulty with breaking up because I'm a solo sexual by heart anyway. I don't really break up with people. I might lose a friend, but I've never really broken up with somebody. But there are other things that can cause me mental grief that I wish I could miss work over, right? As a hobby, I like writing computer games, and believe it or not, I've had 2 computers stolen from me because I get so carried away. My computer goes everywhere with me, and unfortunately, both of those times I had to continue beating at my job with it. Didn't even miss a beat. Didn't even tell anybody that my computer was stolen, right? And I wish I could have gone into work late a couple of times. Oh my God, last night my computer was stolen. You know, I was messed up because of that. Unfortunately, I don't have the luxury of doing that, at least not in the social climate that I live in. Now, 10 years ago, I was working at a tech giant at this point, and my colleague had asked me to donate some of my vacation time. We had a policy that allowed for that to help supplement her maternity leave, and I felt pressured to do that because she had been there longer than I did. She had some clout, and unfortunately, I donated it to her, and I still lost the job anyway eventually, so maybe I shouldn't have done that. But then it dawned on me, what if it went the other way around, right? At the time, I wasn't so committed to my solo sexual relationship. I actually wanted to meet somebody at the time. What if I went up to my colleague and said that, hey, I noticed you're pregnant, congratulations. Oh, by the way, I'd love to go out and meet somebody so that one day I can get somebody pregnant and be just like you. Why don't you give me a couple vacation days so I can extend my vacation to wherever in order to go meet this person so that I could be in your shoes someday. Imagine what would happen if I said that, right? I don't think it would go very well with our culture, right? Okay, now fast forward to just a couple months ago, actually. I was living out of my car because Seattle is just unaffordable for somebody who's solo sexual on one income, right? And one day I had to fill in for a colleague at an odd hour because he had a home repair issue. His pipe had burst and all that. Now, don't get me wrong. I love that people have their lives outside of work. But when I stop to think about it, this guy who is not only privileged enough to be in a relationship that everybody can accept, right? He's straight, he's married, he owns a home, and he asks me to fill in for him when I have to go out to my car to sleep at night. When you zoom out to think about it, something doesn't sound right about that, right? Granted, I think we should work as a team, but on the other hand, the next time I want to do something to improve my personal situation, shouldn't he fill in as well? Just some food for thought, right? Now, sometimes I do such a good job that I end up losing my job, so I love looking for tutoring opportunities on Craigslist. And one time, I was looking at a tutoring gig for somebody who was studying AP Computer Science. He had 2 weeks until the exam, and he had been thinking about meeting 4 times, twice per week for the 2 weeks he had left. I worked with him 2 times, and just before the 3rd lesson, he goes, oh, by the way, I think I'm going to do fine on the AP. Thank you so much. And I lost the last 2 sessions of work, and I'm thinking to myself, I did too well that I worked myself out of a job, right? If this were somebody who didn't get this kid through as fast as I did, and it's not like I got paid for the whole thing, right? Had he paid for a score, right? Let's say he was scoring a 500 on the test and he wanted a 700, and he offered me, if you can get me to a 600, I'll pay you that much. If you can get me to a 700, I'll pay you that much. I don't care how much time it takes. Then I could understand that, right? But unfortunately, that's not how the pay was structured, right? Anyway, some food for thought there on some fairness issues at work.